The following podcast may be explicit. Shedcast presents Adventures from the Shed, a tabletop RPG podcast. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com. Demaya talked her way into the king's carriage for a return ride to the city. What more will the party learn about King Glorin's business on the west side of Kingsbury? Let's listen in to Mickie, JJ, Kurt, Mike, and Joe and find out. Enjoy the podcast.
Hello and welcome back to another Peril of Parandisi, brought to you by Adventures from the Shed. You can find us on adventuresfromtheshed.com. You can find us on Google, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Stitcher Radio. You can find us all over the internet.
Including iTunes.
Oh, iTunes too. All right. And first off, we're going to introduce ourselves, and I think Joe's going to go first.
Hey, I'll go first. I'm Joe. I'm the Game Master, or GM, for our Dungeon World campaign, as JJ mentioned, the Perils of Parandisi. And next, we're going to go to Mike.
It's me, Mike, and I'm playing Fritzy, Snickle Fritz Bombus, the Wizard, and really enjoying the charm lately. And as you heard, we have Kurt.
Hey, this is Kurt. I'm playing Shadrock the Druid. He is manly yet animalistic at the same time. Happy to be here. I'm going to throw it over to Mickie.
We saved the best for last in the group. Hi, everyone. This is Mickie. I will be playing... I need to get my mic in place. I will be playing Demaya. She's the thief of the group, and she's looking for some companionship in this, I think, in this episode.
Cool. And when my wife says she saves the best for last, I mean, she means me.
Oh, we don't need to hear from you, James.
JJ here, playing Strong Dawn, the Barbarian. And I want to say that we again have nerd shirts on today, all except Kurt.
Except Kurt. I tell you, Mike's shirt is my favorite. It's King Arthur with the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch.
Yeah, in the style of the Banksy thing where he's throwing the grenade.
And I still have the Holy Grail ale bottle up there.
I tell you, I saw that picture from last week's, and it was awesome and terrifying at the same time. And I said, today...
The geek shirt one?
The geek shirt. And I was like, today I'm just going to throw it back J. Crew style or Gap style with the plain T-shirt, but when you least expect it, I'm going to bust out some Choose Your Weapon D20
Kurt's
shirts.
Definitely the class of the group.
My wife saw the photo and she's like, "Are you serious? Really?" But
so we're going to get back into it. So you've met all our players, and Kurt is going to give us a recap of our last session. Go ahead,
absolutely,
Kurt.
folks. We love you listening. Brief recap of last session. We left a fantastic masquerade ball that was thrown by Belinda, the right-hand man to the king, who may or may not have her own ulterior motives. She spoke with most or all of us separately. We decided we had to track the king to find out what he was doing, expecting that he was up to something nefarious. Fritzy, smooth dude that he is, was able to actually leave with the king. The rest of us had to follow on horseback, and by horseback I mean Shadrock transforming into a regal Clydesdale. We followed. It got crazy. We went down an alley. The king went into a sewing shop. Long story short, we found a planning room where our illustrious thief Demaya grabbed some what looked like important planning documents. The king shot out a back alley. He had what were effectively clones or doubles. There was what can only be described as pandemonium, while Shadrock transformed into a mountain lion, attacked the king, attacked his knights. There was craziness. Long story short, Demaya ended up in a carriage with the king at the end of the night, convincing him that she was looking out for his best interests and wanted to help him as best she could. The rest of us were fending for ourselves, essentially, and trying to look out for her. And now we're at the point where we are trying to figure out, is the king evil? Is Belinda playing us? What is going on with this dispute, this potential dispute between the factions led by the king and led by Belinda, and how does the Red Hand fit into all of this?
Let me tell you, Mean Gene, it's pandemonium in the ring.
Pandemonium!
Nice.
Step into a Slim Jim.
What is it with guys in wrestling?
Hey,
He said pandemonium.
The 36-inch pythons come crashing into you.
every RPG podcast somehow gets back to wrestling at some point. I don't understand it, but that's the way it is.
And
Girls out there, seriously, do we understand this?
No, you shouldn't.
You don't need to.
And if you did, we'd be afraid.
I give that a 10.
If girls understood all the references to WWFE, we would not like girls anymore.
I think the point of the summary is last session got kind of crazy, but at
It
the end of the
did.
day, we've got to figure out what's going on with the
pulled
king.
off some bullshit there.
Yeah,
We
it
did.
sort of worked out.
So at this point, where we're going to pick up is Demaya is gone off in the carriage with the king, and the other three are left in the streetwalkers as they were, to decide what they are doing next. So we're going to go right to those three, to Strong Dawn, Shadrock, and Fritzy, who is technically still invisible.
Well, and I think
in
it's
the street.
Yeah, and it's important to remind the listeners at home that Demaya is wearing a very attractive, voluptuous.
She's a curvy Latina.
I think you use voluptuous every time you
I do
describe
like that
something.
word. I do like that word.
That's
It's,
nice.
she was at a costume ball looking incredibly
course.
fetching, and
Yeah.
now she's in a carriage with the king.
The
And-
boobs
and
are
act-
hiked up. She's ready to go.
In actuality, everybody is still in their masquerade ball costume.
Right.
Everyone is still balls deep.
Well, anyway, I think that we should probably head back to that little sewing shop
So
hideout.
this bodiless voice comes out of the void of the street and tells you,
I guess now I can become visible again because it doesn't really benefit me now that the king is gone.
I don't know, I think it'd still be cool if you pretended to be inside of Strong Dawn's head.
I like it.
All right, I'll stay invisible, and I'm like, Strong Dawn, time to go back to the hideout that it was in the sewing shop.
Nice.
Yeah, there were a lot of papers there. I think we need to go check it out.
Wait, how can you hear the voice in my head?
He's in my head too. But Demaya got some of those papers, but
Zombie.
there was a lot of stuff there, and that looked like an important room. We should go check it out.
Okay.
All right, let's try that in.
Right? Why not?
Did you happen to see where he came out at?
From the sewing shop.
No, but he ran from the sewing shop. Did you see the?
I think-
It was
I
out
think
the
so
door
f-
that you broke.
I think technically everybody has been through that room. So everyone has seen it. There shouldn't be a mystery as to which room we're talking about.
I wanted to go back through. Instead of going through the sewing shop, I wanted to go back through the bolt hole.
Oh, you went through there.
You
that's
broke
the door.
that
That's the
door.
door you busted
Okay,
down.
so let's go back
Right.
through the bolt hole.
Okay.
Right. And meanwhile, Demaya
I don't know
is
what
in the
you're
carriage with the king.
It sounds like you're saying
Bolt.
hole.
Bolt.
Hodor. All right.
All right, so you guys find your way back to that what I'll call a war room. It's a round table, 4 chairs around it. In that room, there are 4 passageways leading out that really just lead to the same emergency exit that you guys came back in through. And you find your way back to that table, and that table still has several papers strewn about it.
I would want to talk to both of you, maybe in the disembodied voice, and say that one of you should stay outside.
You should have that
and
ghostly tone. One of you
should stay outside and watch. So if the cops show up, they don't raid the place.
There you go.
I'm happy to do that. I'll go out to the street and keep an eye out for anything that might be coming our way.
Now,
Are
for
you a
those-
certain animal?
for
when you're
those who
doing
No,
like-
I think I'm going to stay human for the moment, and
For
if
those
I
who
need to, I'll
like
go
to
to there.
metagame, I think we left the person with the highest wisdom to discern realities out of the room.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
makes sense.
You
And
also
the
know
guy who-
that you're
the
also
guy
a
who reads
creepy
best.
human.
What?
You're also a creepy human that is wearing a wolf costume.
I know the problem is I'm really attractive, like I'm physically muscular.
You just
and
don't know
manly
it
and
yet.
attractive, but I'm creepy and wearing a wolf uniform.
You're just awkward.
You're still coming to terms with your studliness,
Chancellor
aren't you?
Belinda is gonna absolutely want to have sex with me. She just doesn't know it yet.
Dang, man.
let's do
so the papers inside.
Okay. Here's where I need to know how you are approaching this. And the reason I ask it is because it's going to determine what you're going to roll. This is Dungeon World reference, so it's another expose for the listeners who aren't familiar with Dungeon World. The way this could work is if you're just kind of looking around to see if there's anything out of place. That could most likely end up being a wisdom roll, and it might even be a discern realities. However, say, for example, you know all about political papers or lawful documents or what have you, which some of our players might, but our characters wouldn't. That could be a spout lore. It really depends on how you describe your actions onto what role you end up stumbling yourself upon.
I think it would benefit me to look into my knowledge of pretty much every random object. And
well, I'm going to call BS on that. That's be specific. Your knowledge of not every random object.
For those who are listening, that is called trying to play the odds.
well, I mean, like, if there's headers on the documents.
I mean, technically, I know what you're doing is you want to get to spout lore so you can use intelligence. But describe, what does Fritzy know? Because a spout lore, technically, if we read it, is you're consulting your accumulated knowledge about something. What is your accumulated knowledge about these accounting papers? How has Fritzy been involved with accounting previously?
Okay. The reason that he is doing so well at the Frazzled Mermaid is he actually kept them from going out of business by looking into their accounting practices and making sure that they were very profitable, even down by the docks where they are.
Okay, so with that knowledge of how to balance the books, as it were, and that was a little, for those who didn't know, that's a high five between Kurt and Mike.
Kurt's loving it.
A well played.
Parenting practices at the pseudo brothel are right up my alley.
By the way, this is the way you should be trying to play Dungeon World. You describe it the way your character would approach it, not the way you're thinking about it, but the way your character would. I like it. So, Fritzy. Referencing his accumulated knowledge of accounting practices, is about to spout lore based on what he can see on these papers. So as it is quite obvious accounting documents. So there are people who are in arrears on their taxes, like I said last time. And
You said arrear.
I did, and that's why I wanted to say it again. And there are... It is specific. It seems to have some specificity to it, and that's what you're about to roll for.
But it is primarily that kind of documents. Like, it's not that mixed with something else, like, like
there are no
orders to kill people. Or something.
There are no documents here that say John must die.
Okay.
Urge to kill.
All right. So looking at the documents, 10.
10.
So.
Okay. So Fritzy spouts some lore, and he sees. As far as this goes, a lot of things are in order, but there are some weird, I guess, let's use the word cryptic. There are some cryptic writings on here, and what you recognize is there seems to be a pattern. A lot of the documents you read have a little extra reference on them with the letters RH. As in, let me think of a red hand, perhaps. I mean, that might be part of it. And that is kind of hidden within some, like, code. So, John Smith is in arrears on his taxes, and he is labeled as a code 123RH. And you recognize a pattern within this, that maybe half of the documents you find on the table have this reference built into them.
Huh. So...
and that's not normal. It's not a normal accounting practice. The Frazzled Mermaid has never used this code. It seems to be something outside of a normal Kingsbury accounting code.
So I don't want to take those papers with me, but I can scribble down some of the people, some of the notes, some of the numbers, some of the addresses.
Maybe
Maybe
a photographic memory.
Does Fritzy carry any parchment or anything along with it?
I would think he would.
So I would say prestidigitate right onto another piece of paper. I'm looking for a roll. I want to have a roll.
I mean, that's fine.
If you're going to leave something behind to remember it, I'm thinking, how do we make that into a roll? Let's try a prestidigitation.
It's 10 still.
All right, easy enough. So the cast a spell comes off just fine. And although it is not within the verbiage of prestidigitation, it's going to work for me that you're going to take the pertinent information and inscribe it onto your own scroll using prestidigitation.
We are rolling like champs.
Gosh, you guys, nobody's going to level, but the story is moving along.
I'm
just
getting
fine.
closer. I got 2 last time, but
Nice.
we'll
by the
see.
way, I'd like to, at the end of this session, we'll do an end of session move.
Okay.
So we'll look at that. All right, so you have that information. You have transcribed the important bits as you have found them through your successful spout lore onto your own document, so you're able to leave everything behind if you like.
Great.
All right. So how do you
And
want
this
to...
all happened with no outside influence, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I'm just staring at the papers like something's possessed.
Well, the papers are moving around a little bit on their own, and maybe every now and then... what does Fritzy sound like when he's thinking?
He's just sort of talking to himself.
Nonverbal utterances.
But he's sort of talking to himself faster. So it's like really fast that he's like, this one has RH and this one has RH and over here this one is RH plus this and oh man, it all has RH.
I'm lighting incense.
I'm thinking of a nice geek reference, Star Trek The Next Generation. Sometimes they'll do a little fast forward with Data when he's studying something. I'm thinking that he's talking to himself really fast and the camera's moving fast. And
Yeah, I'm lighting incense.
cool. Okay. Now, what does the incense smell like? Well, the incense that Strong Dawn favors, what is the scent? Like heather?
Chamomile
Sandalwood.
sage.
Chamomile sage.
It's 4:57,
So it's
we missed
calming.
4:20 by a little bit, but let's light some incense.
I wish I understood the reference.
Mary Jane.
I don't get it. Sorry.
He's
It
been
must
old
be
for a
something
while.
within the last 30 years.
Marijuana.
Yeah, 420 marijuana. I
420
don't
is
get
the
it.
time when kids would get out of school. So that
420.
Yeah, and then that's when they
I
would
got out of
smoke.
school at 306 back in the 20s.
420 is an old school pot reference. Joe, for those
Joe
of
has
you
a
at
fake
home,
cigar.
Joe has a huge fake blunt that he is smoking right now.
Yeah, dog.
That is awesome.
All right, so you guys are studying that stuff in the room. Demaya, in the stagecoach, the carriage with
The king?
With the king. How are you approaching the situation? So remember, as you were ushered onto the stagecoach, onto the carriage, it was under the pretense that you were Snickle Fritz's, or Snickle Whatsits, as the king calls him. His buddy, Snickle Whatsit. He can't remember his name, but he's definitely his buddy for some reason. How are you continuing that conversation with the king during your 5-minute ride back to the king's residence?
5 minutes.
Approximately.
Okay, I've got 5 minutes. So I kind of snuggle up next to the king and be like, I'm so appreciative of you giving me a ride back to town. My husband tends to just leave me at odd places.
I'm still left to wonder how you made your way from the masquerade ball all the way to this side alley, essentially on the west side of town.
Well, I had a carriage that brought us to the masquerade ball, and I asked the driver to follow my husband. And he just left me here in the middle of town. I guess Fritzy didn't pay him
and
the full
carriage
fare.
turned into a pumpkin, and it all went to hell from there.
He just
got
left me
attacked
here.
by
I
a
figured
cat.
he came this way, so I told
I specifically remember being in that place doing that stuff with Snickle Buddy, and I don't think he'd do something like that. Are you sure it was him?
absolutely it was him. Look at my ring. I mean, what a cheap piece of costume jewelry this is. She unbuttons a couple of buttons up top. God, it's hot in this
All right,
carriage.
so let's roll charisma. That's nice right there.
It's hot in this carriage. I
So
can
at
barely
this point,
breathe.
the danger is that the king is going to eventually succumb to the ruse, or not. What you got? Let's get a number.
6.
All right, so first mark an experience, because that is an utter failure.
Utter failure.
Yes.
I should have known not to talk ill of the Fritzy.
All right. And so really what's happening along the ride is gradually the king is beefing up Fritzy, and you're, well, I guess beefing him down, right? And it seems like the king during the ride, the king seems to be more and more convinced that he's more of Fritzy's friend than you are. Right? Now,
Fritzy,
as far as the other folks go, we'll move back to you guys, back in the war room where you found some information. Fritzy has dutifully recorded this information. What is your next step?
I whisper to Strong Dawn, who's standing beside me, lighting incense, and I'm like, it's time to go back to the Frazzled Mermaid. Buy Fritzy a beer. Buy him lots of beers.
Wave incense around. Do I get some
He's
ash in
warding
his
off
eye?
the evil spirit.
Do I get some
Stuff
ash in his
instance
eye?
in my ear.
And then I'll head outside and become visible right outside.
Okay.
I will-
Shadrach, you moving along with them?
I am.
All right. So you all step outside of the sewing shop, knowing that Demaya went on board the carriage with the king. What's your next step?
What's my next step?
Everybody, I want to know what you guys.
I'm going back to the Frazzled Mermaid.
Yeah, how you guys are handling what your next steps are. Because we're about to go to Demaya
Right.
being
I
kind of separated from the king, and I need to know where you guys are to know how people are
I
meeting
think
up, or if.
We're together enough to discuss. I think Strong Dawn and Fritzy should go to the Frazzled Mermaid and do what they do. And I would like to keep an eye on the carriage with Demaya from a distance, just to be sure, because she's a woman. She's alone with the king, and he's a potentially dastardly man. So I'd just like to be 75 yards away, maybe as a
So you want to follow,
night owl, as a barred owl.
but you want to follow that.
Just to keep an eye on her. So if there's
So-
trouble, I'm there.
What I want to know is, I want to put Adventures from the Shed out here so you guys can see it. How they've been gone for several minutes. What do you do to catch up to them?
I transformed into a barred owl,
Roll it.
and I flew to catch up with them.
Shape shifting for the druid.
9, 12.
Those are my dice still, aren't they? Gosh,
They're
keep
weighted.
those
they
dice.
need to be
honestly
made.
weighted.
No. Would you let me roll them?
No, don't let him touch it.
You don't want him to
I mean,
put
they
his
don't
want
bad
him to mess
juju.
that up.
Seriously, I want to know. Would you
Bad
let me?
juju.
No,
Stop it.
don't do it.
Don't
I'm
don't
confident.
ever let.
I'm ruined now.
There we go. Still good. As I rolled a 9.
Yeah,
and
but
with
now
your
he's
plus 3,
sucked
that's
for the rest
12.
of the
Now he's
adventure.
ruined the dice container.
That's all right. I got a backup. They roll well.
They're mine. I don't know if I've ever rolled them that well. So, all right. So here we go.
I'm basically keeping watch.
So
as
step
a
1,
barred
you've
owl.
got 3 hold. You're
3
going to
holds.
use 1 to immediately find your prey. Your prey at this point as that owl is the carriage where you know Demaya should be with the king. You have seen this carriage. You followed it as a Clyde sheep. You have now reacquired that prey. That's your prey as the owl. And what did you want to do next?
So now my goal is simply to keep watch.
Okay.
So that if there's a problem, if Demaya gets in trouble, I'm there within 3 seconds to help her.
And at that point now we have 3 splits on the party. Demaya's with the king. Shadrach is hovering overhead as a barred owl. Now let's find out what Fritzy and Strong Dawn are doing now that they are left without the druid. Fritzy is, however, now visible. So if there's a voice, it
Yes.
won't be just in your head.
And I'll buy him a beer when I get back.
Yeah.
Are you guys headed right to the Frazzled Mermaid?
Yes.
All right, so here's where we're going to cut then, because it's going to
Best
take
bar
you
ever.
several minutes to get there. It's going to take some time. And we're going to be able to resolve what's going on between Demaya and the king. So, as you get near to the king's residence, the knight who is aboard the carriage, the same situation as when Fritzy was in there earlier. There was a knight within the carriage as well as 2 riding outside. The knight within the carriage says, "My king, it is time. You must leave your escort here. We need to return to your home." and they start to lead the king away from you.
See ya, Kingy. All right. What do I do? So the king's
Bridget's
leaving.
home.
Yeah, for those listening, my phone just mentioned that Bridget's home and my wife, and it just showed up on the table.
My king.
Yep.
Can we see you tomorrow?
So what are you trying to do here so I can see what role we are trying to make?
So I'm trying to get another meeting with the king tomorrow just to get together and reminisce about old times.
And are you doing this in some kind of way that would involve strength, charisma, intelligence, constitution? How
It would have to be
sounds
charisma.
like charisma to
It would
me.
have to be charisma.
You're hiking your skirt up a little bit while you do this?
Well, I mean, the buttons are already loose on my top, and I
Yes.
know from talking to him in the carriage, I know that he has a fond...
So you're going to do a
He
little
likes the
Janet
Fritz.
He's
Jackson,
fond of
Justin
Fritzy.
Timberlake on him? All right.
He's fond of
The
Fritzy.
king might
like-
be gay, which we need to take into account.
We need to take
Which is
into
fine. It's
account.
totally cool, even though we were in South Carolina.
Not that there's anything wrong with
Nothing
that.
wrong with it.
Seinfeld.
But we just need to account for it.
All right, so let's do a
So I mean, I know that he's fond of Fritzy, so I'm just
Yeah,
like,
it's
you know, it
I
would.
know
I know.
Fritzy's free tomorrow.
I know how much you and he are such good friends. He constantly talks about you, and he wishes he could get together with you more often. I happen to know he's free
Fritz, you're
tomorrow.
having sex with the king?
Would
So-
you?
That'd be
Uh-huh.
awesome.
Can we stop by for afternoon tea?
Let's throw a charisma roll out there. Let's see what happens.
It sounds so loud in my
Fritzy
ears.
hooks up with the king. I am so down with that.
Of course.
Gosh, now has anyone,
12.
just as a curiosity, today this is our third session we've recorded. Has anyone failed other than Mike?
I just failed.
You just had 12.
No, before that, remember? In the
Okay,
carriage?
yes, is an actual
No.
failure. That's
No,
right.
today's
So
I
we've
haven't
only had
rolled.
we've only had three. I think
I-
three
no, I had a fail.
failures.
I had a
today.
fail.
Did you?
Because he
When my
bonked
dice
into the wall or something.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was just throwing some out there. I could not remember. All right. So, Demaya, the king says to you, "Well, hey, you know, I'd like to continue catching up with Snickle. What's it on old times because we didn't have a chance before the knights, asked him to leave while I had to go about my my business and." Perhaps I could catch up with him tomorrow. That would be great. How about let's? And he like brings out some kind of appointment
His
book
Palm
that
Pilot.
his knight hands him his appointment book, and he's swiping through it, and he says, "How about maybe 2:00 tomorrow? I think I'm open then. Is that sound all right with
That
you?"
sounds great, sire.
Afternoon tea.
Great. And one of the knights that's in there, he says, "Miss, you'll have to leave now." And he kind of gently grabs you by your upper arm.
Don't touch me.
It's
Do you know who I am?
gentle. It's gentle, and he kind of ushers you out of the carriage.
All right, she curtsies and walks away.
Okay. Yeah, grab was the wrong word. It's more of a guidance. He didn't really grab you.
Rude.
Yeah.
All right, curtsy and walk away.
Okay, so
And
now you are
see.
outside of the king's residence, and in the meantime, others are just about arrived back at the Frazzled Mermaid. Shadrock, you see Demaya exit the carriage, and then the carriage moves on past the gates into the king's residence.
She could probably use a lift.
And Demaya, you have the faint scent of pine in the air about you.
Shagtastic, are you around here?
Wait, she had the what?
Faint scent of pine in the air about her.
So she's like,
She's a
Shaggy.
big girl. I'm going to keep tracking.
I really enjoy the druid tell, so I bring it up more than you.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep tracking on the king. Demaya's a big girl.
damn it, never trust a druid.
That's kind of rude.
I mean, just a gentle follow from behind.
Okay.
You poop on her. Jamba Deuce.
I poop on the king.
giant owl deuce.
Fucking hell.
Okay.
I'm
So
gonna fry you.
we have you following the king. He goes into his house, and unless you're going to spy in windows, you don't see him.
So what you
All
gonna
right,
do?
at that point, I'll circle back to where Demaya is and transform back to a human.
Okay.
It's about time. All right, we need to get back to the inn.
So at this point, then Fritzy and Strongdawn arrive at the Frazzled Mermaid. Quite honestly, I do not remember what name I gave the owner of the Frazzled Mermaid, the barkeep.
I don't have a note. I'm going to say
Skinny John. Skinny John is a
Skinny
tavern
John.
owner.
And remember, Skinny John doesn't talk.
Yeah.
He just serves.
Skinny John was...
Actually, now that I look at my notes, Skinny John was a tavern owner that paid Strong John to kill rats. We'll say it's the same guy anyway.
All right. Skinny John...
He doesn't talk. He doesn't talk much. He
He
grunts every now and then.
He was the recipient of a botched hanging, so his vocal cords got very damaged. So he has like a mark on his throat from the hangman's noose, but his case got sort of thrown out when the hanging got botched. So he
They hanged him. They just didn't kill him. So
he got the in after that. So he sort of can still convey messages by just doing little grunts, but he's not a talker.
All right. And they're like throaty, grunty sounds instead of the He's like,
Yeah.
All right. So you find your normal stool at the bar, perhaps the one that has the big F written on the bar stool.
It's
itself.
carved in there.
And when you walk in, a couple of the
baby.
right, when you walk in, a couple of the normal patrons shout, "Fritzy!" Hey!
Like Norm, but Fritzy.
Yeah. It's more of a cheer than a greeting.
really,
Fritzy!
I give Skinny John a little bit of a hug, and I give him one of the fine wine bottles that I collected.
All right, good. Yeah, that was from the basement. Yeah.
And ask him if everything's going all right since I've been gone.
When you hand him that bottle, there's a very uncharacteristic smile on his face and a grunt that could only be of joy. And that bottle you hand him must be probably like the best bottle of wine that somebody has handed him in a long time. So he's very pleased at that.
I look out for my friends.
Yeah, and
I knew he would appreciate that.
The grunt is definitely one that you would associate with happiness. If there is such a thing as a grunt that equals happy, this was it.
Definitely.
I mean, you know Skinny John enough. By the way, Skinny John is fat.
Of course.
It just happens. Right? Like Tiny is the biggest guy in the room.
Yep.
Right. So Strong John?
Have we read the documents yet from the war room?
Not yet.
Not yet.
The
Well, I
other
mean, he's
strong
kind
guy.
of skimmed
Yeah.
him over. But
Yeah.
So yes, we
So
sort of did.
He knows there's some pattern in there that shouldn't be there based on the accounting he's aware of in Kingsbury. Strong Dawn, you are now in a tavern with, think of it as just regular bar folk. That's who you are amongst right now. So there's one table that has this guy who clearly all his life's ambition is to sit at that table and drink mead from the Frazzled Mermaid. He has no other ambition in life. And he was the first one to say, "Fritzy!" when Fritzy walked in the room. And everyone else joined in the chorus. And amongst the others in the room are a woman who immediately kind of saddled right up to Fritzy as he found his F bar stool. And she's right there with him. And there are others within the room that just really don't care whether you're there or not.
Fair enough. Let's see. What would I mean?
Is this the first time Strong Dawn has been in what would be considered a neighborhood tavern?
Yes, like he has experienced beer, but only as a side to a dinner. Like never drank for drink's sake.
Interesting. All right, so it's like the European drinking wine type of thing.
Yeah.
It goes along with what you normally do. And other people here, then, they're drinking the beer, but do not have food in front of them.
You know,
You don't want to eat that food. I'm giving hand motions, sort of like get him a beer. Well, I'm sort of still trying to talk to the regulars, trying to figure out what happened in my absence, since they are there all the time.
Okay. during the time you've been gone, it's been kind of a normal. A couple of how long has it been now? If anybody had to guess, how long has it been since the last time you guys were here? This is when you'd have been here with Aglanor and Shadrock.
2 months.
That long?
I don't think it's
Let's
that
say I don't
long.
think
it's been
It's
that
a couple
long.
weeks.
Let's say a few weeks. Let's say a few weeks at least, maybe short of a month. I'll go with that. So one of the things that has happened is during the time that you have been gone, there was a shortage of the St. Angelique Stout for a little bit. It's just starting to pick back up. That has actually lost Skinny John a few customers. However, he believes they'll come back once the stout picks back up. And he is now expecting possibly a couple of more higher brow customers based on this wine that you brought him, at least for a week or two during the time it lasts. But one of the things you hear most about is there's a lot of commotion down on the docks where dock workers are very concerned with the higher level of import taxes, which are reducing the amount of inbound shipments. So the a bit of complaint around the bar is that the tavern, the bar, is that some patrons who work on the docks or work in the marketplace are not able to get all the goods they need to keep their business going right now because the import taxes have been raised sharply over the last month.
And I had heard murmurs of this before I had left because I hear snippets from the news. I usually have a lot of free time.
You get the headlines, you get the CNN update on your phone.
But I tell them that we took care of the St. Angelique Stout problem. We saved the day with that. I will do what I can to take care of this problem too.
Okay. So the girl who has saddled up to you, have you spent any time with her previous to today? I mean, did she come up to you because of a previous experience, or?
I think that Hilda.
She's a solid 5.5, by the way.
I think Hilda is
Right up your alley.
A little bit better than his alley.
Yeah.
is not. She just hangs out there, so I surprisingly ignore her most of the time because I'm trying to pull in the rich women at the other places.
Okay.
But I know of her, and she's sort of like
So you're playing hard to get.
almost like a guy friend to me.
Okay, so Hilda is a hanger-on.
You're just
to
not that
Fritzy
into her?
then. Right. Hilda hangs on to you mainly because she knows that when you're around, good things happen. Mm-hmm. Whether it be an extra party at the Frazzle Mermaid or something special happens that night, whether she's involved or not. Maybe you bring the party outside of the Mermaid to somewhere else. But she tries to hang on to every one of these events that Fritzy is involved in. And she's the one that brings up that some of the dock workers that she hangs out with are pretty much getting ready to rebel because of the spike in taxes. A spike meaning that, so she'll give you some kind of reference that normally some of the trappers who come in from outside, maybe from the mountains, like where Shadrock had been hanging out, they come in with pelts from the mountains, and they had normally been able to get in through the docks at about a 5 coin premium. That has now been raised to like 50. It has been raised so high that it is almost worth more than the valuables that they are bringing in. So there is talk of rebellion at the docks. And according to Hilda, the vast majority of what's going on is by purview of the king himself.
Well, I encourage her to tell her dock worker friends, don't do anything rash, because even with the
Dock workers all have rashes.
even with the
From Hilda.
decreased imports, they're still making a living. So
Yeah.
I will do what I can to talk to the king. I just talked to him tonight at a party. He seems really able to hear what I have to say. So I will try to get him to look into that.
Okay. Now, from there, what does Strong Dawn think of this conversation? Tell me, how does he react to hearing this kind of back and forth between Fritzy and Hilda?
He's a little bit disconcerted that something that we as a group are planning, he's just kind of spilling the beans randomly to someone that the rest of the group has no idea who they are.
Okay. Now, you can tell, I would say Strong Dawn should be able to tell that this is kind of a casual conversation between two well-known acquaintances, that she hangs out with him enough that it doesn't sound like he is telling her something that he wouldn't tell a friend, so to speak.
Okay.
You know, it's more casual than it is forced.
Yeah, it's not like I'm telling her that we're working on a job
So
for the king.
I want to maybe interject then, what do we think of this Belinda? What does Skinny John and Hildy think of Belinda?
That's a good point. Go ahead. Explore that.
All right, so I ask him about the Chancellor and see what they feel about her, if she does anything in the city that's unusual, or...
So Skinny John doesn't talk much, but Hilda will continue. So she's a gossip hound. Of course, Chancellor Belinda is definitely a champion of the downtrodden, although the king is trying to do awful things to us people just trying to make a living. Chancellor Belinda will definitely rally on the side of the poor and downtrodden, and she will definitely help us out at any time it's needed. Very much a happy Chancellor Belinda fangirl. Just go for it, JJ. Pop that damn thing. Go for it.
Does she do much work with the needy in a church or anything like that?
She has worked quite a bit with let's say St. Martin's Church.
Okay.
Let me write that down now that I've said it. But St. Martin's Church...
I just want to see if there's a public event that we can go in.
St. Martin's Church monthly runs a food drive where they bring lots of grains and wheats and all kinds of baked goods in for the poor. And although Belinda really champions that cause, the king doesn't seem to care about it.
Okay.
Hilda is definitely very one-sided, that she doesn't like the king, but she loves Chancellor Belinda. Very, like I said, a fangirl, without a doubt. That the king can do no right, Belinda can do no wrong. During this, several-minute conversation that you have with her, it is very apparent.
Belinda 2016?
Belinda 2016.
Belinda knows that heaven is a place on earth.
Baby, do you know what that's worth?
Children.
I guess I would want to inquire if my normal room is available and if we could get another room or two for my friends.
As the GM, I will tell Mike, if you want to mark off 10 coins, your room is still available. And if you want to mark off a total of 20, you will have rooms available for your 3 companions.
Yeah, Fritzy baby. Thanks for the room,
now
man. Thanks.
let's skip over while that finishes up. Demaya and Shadrock are outside of the king's residence. What happens?
Are there any carriages or anyone around that I can talk to get a carriage?
Outside of the king's residence are a couple of the knights of Kingsbury, who are not at all favorable to you.
I need a ride back to my inn. Can anyone help me? And they say nothing?
They are, let's call them pricks. They look at your feet and say they seem perfectly serviceable, lady.
You bastards. How dare you speak to me this way? Do you have any idea who I am? Nothing.
Think of the the poofy helmeted guys over in Europe who don't pay any attention to you once they decide they don't want to. The Queen's Guard. They no longer care about you. Once they have dismissed you, you are now dismissed.
Spit in their face and walk away.
How many videos of that are on YouTube?
Right?
Spit in their face and walk away. Come on, Shagtastic.
And I'm curious, how does Shadrock meld into this scene from Bard Owl to companion to Demaya?
I mean, he's just watching. He's just basically keeping guard.
So still as the owl?
So you're still an owl?
Okay.
All right, so she's like, spits in the knight's face, walks away. Does she see Shaggy? Or Shadrock?
No, Shagtastic is just up there keeping a general
You only
guard.
smell the pine. That's all you smell.
All I do is smell the
You noticed
pine.
the pine smell earlier, so
Okay.
you know that Shadrock is around.
So I walk over to kind of like a more secluded area where I can wait for him to show up.
You like raise your hand and he comes down onto.
So what I want to do is I want to now, let's say the party gets together at the Frazzled Mermaid.
Yeah.
Okay. As characters, I need you to take a few minutes and talk amongst yourself about what you want to do next. I am actually going to do something I normally wouldn't do and step out of the shed while you guys talk amongst yourselves,
He's leaving us alone.
and I will be right back. So go ahead. You guys are all at the Frazzled Mermaid. Fritzy has secured rooms for
Fritzy's
you.
got rooms and wine, baby, and beer.
Exactly. There is some nice wine. Turns out that it was some very nice wine that Fritzy took from the basement. And Skinny John is very much indebted to Fritzy for doing this. So you guys got some cheap rooms. And figure out what you want to do. I won't be able to hear it, so let's see how that works out.
All right, so
We need to look through the rest of the papers.
yeah, and as soon as you guys show up, I say we'll go upstairs to my room and we'll talk about this in private.
Sounds good.
So we can go up there and look at the papers, and I can tell you what I saw on the other papers.
Okay.
Okay.
So I share my papers, and once we get in the room, I tell you you've got an appointment with the king tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Great,
for afternoon tea.
good job.
By the way, we're married, but I don't like you, just so you know.
Well, nothing new there.
All right, so we're going to review the paperwork. I guess we'll have to find out what else it says. So what do you want to do tomorrow?
Well, I mean, after looking at my paperwork, I see that the evictions seem to be something related to the Red Hand people. So maybe he's just evicting people that he's
rooting them out.
He knows are the Red Hands, which, I mean, that seems like a decent thing for a king to do. Like, it's not like he's taking random poor people.
He's not accusing them of treason and killing them.
Yeah, he's just sort of kicking them out. And if I were,
You guys can hear me, but I can't hear you. I'm about to step in about 5 seconds, wrap up what you're doing, and I'll be right back in.
like, if I had found a group that was going against me as the king, I would think that I would try to evict them as well. So maybe he's not such a bad guy if this is just a party against him instead of...
All right, I'm back in the room now, and I can hear. Let me put my headphones back
We got
in.
nothing accomplished.
Well, I mean, we sort of talked about it. We sort of need to know what's on her papers, if it's any different than the papers I saw.
Specifically, the papers that Demaya has confirm without a doubt what you have found, that there is a code specifically there to single out people. Without a question, based on looking at what she had rolled up and put in her pocket, you know that code is there to single out individuals.
And like I said, I mean, he is finding the group that hates him. So it's
Okay.
he's not ordering their deaths. He's just evicting them from the city.
As far as we know.
As
We
far
don't
as
know
we
what
know.
happens to them after they leave the city. So at this point, we still don't know whether the king is good or bad. We still don't know who the good guy is and who the bad guy is.
Does anybody in Kingsbury, and the only person I think might be appropriate to this, although I'll leave it out to everybody, does anybody keep an eye on the daily news of Kingsbury?
I mean, like I said, when I was there, I was sort of keeping up with the news.
Okay.
But I've been gone for 2 weeks, too.
So let's go with, to me, this is going to be an intelligence roll. Of course, this is to your favor, but it's really, you're reading newspapers and trying to make a link to something that you may have read. So let's do an intelligence roll here. And what we're going to say, this is now the next day. Everybody got a night's rest. You wake up in the next morning, the newspaper, what you call it, USA Today is sitting outside your hotel room. You grab it. It's a Kingsbury Today, exactly. You grab that paper. You're reading it down in the bar over your Irished up coffee, perhaps. And what'd you roll?
I rolled a 10.
All right, so we're going to say as a spout lore / intelligence roll, not necessarily spout lore. We'll just go with intelligence. It occurs to you that in the paper, early this morning, there is an obituary for a person who is listed on one of the documents you picked up yesterday. Specifically, let me not say obituary. I think that's the wrong way to word. It's more of a news article. Obituary is when it could be days later. A news article that says, Phyllis Smith found dead in her home yesterday, apparently of unnatural causes. And this is Phyllis Smith is one of the people who was in arrears on her taxes and had the 123RH designation on her
I think
form.
it'd be better if the newspaper blamed a mountain lion.
Mountain lions
It could be, but no. I said but.
She was in arrears. All right, go ahead.
I mean, that's sort of it.
Mickey's
I was
funny.
hoping it would say something a little bit more specific on how she died.
Currently, the newspaper article says just not natural causes currently under investigation by the Knights of Kingsbury. Found in the west end of Kingsbury, dead in her home alone where she lived, and is currently under investigation by the Knights of Kingsbury.
I feel like the Knights of Kingsbury are more powerful than the city realizes. There's been 2 separate instances where the king has acted like a fop, and it's been the knights that have been controlling him in a way. Like, you were booted out after befriending him. Demaya was booted out after befriending him.
Although they could just be keeping him safe. Like, he sort of been going to...
Would you see a master devious machinations kind of guy being such a fop?
Now, let me ask JJ / Strong Dawn, why do you consider him a fop?
Because somebody in this regards would have he would have better plans than what's been going on. It feels like he's being set up as a scapegoat.
Okay. And that could be true, but I would also say don't necessarily read too much into it. Because some of what happens is based on your roles, but that doesn't mean it's not true.
Fair enough.
Okay. All the time, I'm making shit up on the fly based on your roles, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. So let's explore that a little more. I think I've said that several times on this episode. Let's explore your feelings. So the characters are all sitting around a table down at the Frazzle Mermaid, looking at the edition of Kingsbury Today that Fritzy has pointed out to you. This article, maybe, of what's going on. You're all sitting around again over your Irished up coffees or whatever it is you drink in the morning, and there's a few stale croissants or something placed in front of you on the table as part of your breakfast. How are you handling this news that says almost definitely there is a link, if not completely definitely, there is a link between Phyllis Smith being in this list of people who are in arrears on their taxes and Phyllis Smith being found dead last night in her home in the West End of Kingsbury?
Was Phyllis Smith have a red hand code?
Phyllis Smith had a 123RH on her form. Yes. That was one of the first things that caught Fritzy's eye.
I think we should go and maybe one or two of us, while Fritzy's with the king, meet the Onion Knight.
You know, it's a good point that Demaya has set up a 2 p.m. meeting with Fritzy and the king today.
Yes.
So keep that in mind as we move forward.
Yeah, so I think we should, while Fritzy is there, since we can't all be there with him, that some of us go and speak to our contact with this group and see what he has, any information extra.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Let me ask you, when you say contact, who are you talking about?
The Onion Man.
The Onion Man.
Okay, so Robard. Okay.
Robard.
Robillard.
I like
the
calling
Robard.
him the Onion Man.
That's fine. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same person. That's good.
I would just ask that I totally support the plan, and I'd say, oh, you should definitely go talk to him, see what that side is saying. I just request that like one of you either Strong Dawn or Shaggy accompanies me to the King's meeting, because I could definitely get one of you in as either a bodyguard or my manservant.
Fair enough.
You don't think you can handle the king on your own? Or
No,
you just want
it's
some backup?
fine. It just makes me look a little bit better if I come in with a bit of an entourage.
Nice. I like the approach. Yeah, that's good.
Cracking them beers.
Hey, for those who are listening, if you hear those cans crack open, they're actually just Pepsi Max being poured into a crap ton of alcohol.
But yeah, maybe we can. That'll be a good place to stop, and
Actually,
we can do the end of session.
What I wanted to ask is somebody give me a summary of the next approach. I heard several different things, all in the same vein, but somebody give me an approach of what we're doing next. Let me give you the summary first of what we're looking at today. As the morning broke, Fritzy was able to determine that there is definitely a link between Phyllis Smith and the 123RH code of these tax forms. And Phyllis Smith is dead. She definitely matches that profile amongst those forms. In addition, Demaya had arranged a impromptu get-together with herself, King Glorin, and Fritzy today at about 2 p.m. What I want to know, based on that context, what was the plan going forward?
All right, so since it sounded like Demaya made it very clear that she was on the outs with her husband Fritzy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mainly that Fritzy was not the most upstanding husband, I think.
Yes.
Maybe. Yeah.
And that the king really loves Fritzy since he got charmed. That Fritzy was going to go to the meeting with either Shadrock or Strong Dawn. And while they're at the meeting at 2 o'clock, the other two will go to meet with the Onion Man.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Sounds good. And as you said, Mike, that's where we're going to leave this session. But what we're going to do here is we are going to do another Dungeon World end of session move. This is a special move you'll find on the back of the basic move sheet. There are special moves. On the top right is one called End of Session. I'm going to read it verbatim here. When you reach the end of the session, choose one of your bonds that you feel is resolved. And in parentheses, it says completely explored, no longer relevant, or otherwise. I think, unfortunately, we have not spent a whole lot of time with that at our table. Maybe we might do that today or soon. Does anybody have a bond from their sheet that applies to another character that they think that has been resolved or no longer relevant, well, or otherwise?
I have one where I think it's Fritzy is always getting into trouble. I must protect them from themselves. He's no longer really calling all the attention to himself. Now that I've been managing to draw the attention to myself first.
Okay.
And he seems to not be quite failing as bad in his roles. Okay. So he's actually getting his spells off correctly rather than bumbling through it.
So let me read the rest of that first part that talks about bonds. Ask the player of the character you have the bond with if they agree. If they do, mark experience and write a new bond with whomever you wish. JJ and Mike, would you think that that bond is resolved the way that he has described it?
I mean, he's definitely been doing that, so I would think that yeah, he'll still probably keep doing that, but
yeah.
He definitely has been doing that.
I would say that in character, he would still keep on the same path. But yes, I would agree with that as well. So go ahead and mark one experience. And you're going to want a new bond. And that's something we should talk about. I would really like to do better with keeping track of bonds. It's a great way to gain experience. Anybody else? No? All right, let's move on to... Oh, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let's move on to the next part, which is once bonds have been updated, look at your alignment. If you have fulfilled that alignment at least once this session, now remember for us, this session goes back several hours, mark an experience and who has anything on their alignment that they think they have hit.
How far back are we going?
We're going back several sessions. Tell me what you're thinking, Kurt, and let's see if it
have
fits.
eliminate an unnatural menace,
Okay.
which certainly in the last 2 or 3 I have not.
Okay.
But if we went back
But if we
farther,
went back
I
to
might have.
Hazara, maybe.
Let's go back to Hazara. I don't think anybody remember better than me. I don't think we did an end of session after defeating Hazara.
And I was
Shadrach
integral there.
had as did everyone in the party, had a key role in eliminating the Hazara threat. So go ahead and mark an experience for that.
Okay.
Anybody else, based on their alignment as written?
I have discovered something about a magical mystery, and if it goes back to Hazara, I think that going to the other world and
Not just
seeing
that,
the
just getting to
army-
the sub-basement or the basement of the monastery and finding that spot in the wall and uncovering that. Yes, I would agree. Go ahead and mark an experience for that. Mickie, what about Demaya? What alignment
Hers
do you have?
is neutral, avoid detection, or infiltrate a location.
Just straightforward. You got into Sally Sewing Emporium undetected.
And with the king and
Yeah. Go ahead and mark an experience for that. Strong Dawn, what
Mine
have you
is
got?
teach someone the ways of my people.
the haka.
You showed them how to stomp their feet
The
to
haka,
bagpipes. For goodness sakes, you got to get an experience when you show the upper class how to stomp their feet to bagpipes
yes.
and pan flutes. Yeah. Shadrach, what's your alignment?
Oh, I had to eliminate an unnatural presence.
We did that first. You got it.
Joe's
next. Yeah, if only. Our next step is now we are going to look at these 3 questions, and for each one we answer yes to, we're going to mark an experience. First, again, thinking back several sessions for us, did we learn something new and important about the world? I think the answer is a resounding yes, but we're going to go around the table, and I want to hear from each person what they think was new and important about the world. Mickie?
Well, geez, if we go back to
If
Hazara,
you pick one thing.
for me, my earth-shattering moment was when I found out that Lady Vostra is really Belinda Carlisle.
That's very new and very important. JJ, what do you think?
learning that I can mold a god into my being and incorporate her into my being.
You know, we did no women's intuition stuff this time.
I know.
Yeah, you didn't roll at all for that. But I agree. Definitely. Good one. Shadrock.
We
new and
learned about
important.
the split between the factions within Kingsbury with the king, the faction led by the king, the faction led by Chancellor Belinda, and the fact that the Red Hand appears to be supporting
Kurt,
the
you
Belinda.
just said faction led by Chancellor Belinda. I'm curious, where did you come to that conclusion?
And that may not be accurate, but we know that.
Well, I like that you said it. I'm curious how you came to that conclusion.
Well, she's
personally.
essentially second in command to the king
Yep.
as head of the Council of Peers,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that the Red Hand is aligned with her at least tangentially, and so I would say that if she's second in command to the king and is working with the Red Hand, she's
Okay.
if not opposed to the king, at least very powerful, and we know that she's been had a disagreement with him over the taxes and the confiscations. So
Cool. I
might
like
have
it.
jumped to a conclusion, but it
So
appears
still definitely a yes. Mike.
My favorite one was that there's apparently 4 of the king.
Yeah.
So
you like that?
There's like either a crazy spell or he has brothers
Yeah.
or a clone. Or
By the way, as a and I like to do this as an expose into Dungeon World to me. That only came about per your failure. That it wasn't going to be easy to know which was the true king. But then, interesting side note into Joe, if you ever have to roll a die and there's a number you have to hit, my favorite number is 2. You rolled a 2. So you hit the king right on the first shot. So since my favorite number is 2, you got it. Otherwise, it was a 1 in 4 shot, right? But since we had to pick a number, you picked 4, I picked 2, and I was just curious. Anyway, so yes, same answer. Yes, that was.
So we all
new and
mark
important.
1 XP for learning something about the world.
yes,
Correct. So under the end of session, the first bullet, did we learn something new and important about the world? That's a yes. Did we overcome a notable monster or enemy? First off, the answer is yes,
Yeah,
because Hazara fits. Okay? And just to make it short, we'll stick with that. Hazara fits. Yes. And did we loot a memorable treasure? This is where I leave it up to you 4. What do you think about this? Now, a memorable treasure isn't, I picked up the special +5 Vorpal sword of head cutting offedness. It is, I got something new that is memorable. What does that
500
mean?
gold pieces from the Red Hand is a lot of gold. 500 gold pieces
Okay.
from the Red Hand is a lot of gold.
Okay, who else?
But at the same time, we also got those documents.
The documents.
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about the connection to the evictions with the Red Hand.
Okay.
So
That's a huge plot
something
driver.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the answer to that to me then is yes. We have looted a memorable treasure. And again, really for me, that's a big one where it's often misinterpreted as I got the best sword ever. It's really I looted something. I gained something into my inventory that matters to this game.
And that's
we're
actually
good there.
evidence that we can use if necessary.
Yes. Yes, that's good. So that completes our end of session. Is anybody at the point where they can level up? That is your current level +7 experience.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so what I want to do then is I would encourage those, because we are in a city where we will go ahead and level up at the beginning of our next recording, beginning of our next session. We will talk about what level up advanced moves those characters chose, and we'll use that to help advance our story as we go. But in the meantime, we're going to call an end to this session as we are well over an hour. Special bonus 9 minutes to those who chose to listen to the whole thing. And let's all say
Goodbye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
bye.
Bye.
Penis.
There we go.
Demaya sets up a meeting with the king for the following day, and Fritzy finds a connection between the accounting codes and a dead woman on the west side of Kingsbury. We'll see how the meeting ends up in the next session. Thanks for joining us. The preceding podcast was brought to you by Shedcast. You can find us online at adventuresfromtheshed.com.